Hi, this is Greg with Lionquestfitness, and today we're going to talk about ways you can improve your accuracy with a snub-nose revolver. Now, 25 yards, I don't think that was too bad. I was aiming towards this area right here. And what brought this video on, a friend of mine by the name of Batjack JW. Now, he loves to shoot, but he's more of a collector. And he collects a lot of times because of a gun that's in a movie or a TV show. But he's got a pretty good channel, and I enjoy watching him on Saturday mornings. But one of the things he talked about in a recent show was that he found he could not shoot J-frame revolver. He loved J-frame revolvers for their beauty, for their appearance, but he couldn't shoot them very well. And there were several other people who commented and agreed with the same. And what I want to talk about today were things that you can do to improve your ability to shoot with a J-frame or small frame revolver. First off, let's talk about the guns that I shot. And I'm going to shoot again at the end of the video. And one of these in an Azula holster is the Smith & Wesson Model 640. Now, I bought this gun used, and I came close to selling it several times. The main reason being, once you got past 7 yards, the barrel is slightly canted, or was slightly canted, and it would throw the shots off to the left. So I took it to a company called Concept Arms over in Anderson, South Carolina, and they were able to readjust the barrel, and they also did a tune-up on the gun. Thank you, fellas. You did a very good job. That's why I'm giving the shout-out. Now, on it, I have Altamont grips. I do not like the rubber grips that come on this gun. They don't work for me. I need a thicker grip to control the gun. And even though these are not rubber, they do give me the ability to shoot, 357 with this gun and to not suffer too much from the recoil. Now, the other gun, everybody's favorite gun to hate on, not mine, but this is a Taurus 856. And I make no apologies for saying this. These are well-designed guns for the money. And these grips are, and this is one of the important things, is the grip. And this grip is very ergonomic. Now, a few people do not like this grip, but for me, it's almost perfect. The only disadvantage is that it's tacky and hard to pull out of concealment. Now, once again, they spent a lot of work designing these guns, making it simple design, and a well-made and very utilitarian design. Now, that doesn't mean that Taurus doesn't ever have problems with quality control, because just like every other manufacturer, and my 640 being an example, every other manufacturer has the same problem. But this is a very well-designed gun. Also, when you develop the ability to shoot with it, it's very accurate. Now, the first thing you want to work on, and as we mentioned grips, you want a grip that fills your hand and enables you to hold this gun very tightly. Second thing being your trigger squeeze. Now, what I have in here from Zeta 6 are what they call their safety snaps. And this is ideal for using to dry fire a revolver. So, grip and then trigger squeeze. You don't want, if you can help it, you really don't want to stage the trigger. Although with Smith & Wesson and Taurus revolvers, not so much as with Rossi or Charter Arms, you can stage the trigger. But you really don't want to do that. What you want is a very consistent, steady squeeze, just like that. The other thing that you want is a good grip on the gun. Now, if you're shooting two-handed, what I recommend is that you lock the thumb over the first joint of the other thumb and you shoot like that. Another thing that you have to look at, now this sight lines up with the rear trench, but this gun right here, this sight actually is higher than that rear trench. If I line it up with the rear trench, I'm going to shoot low. So I have to and I paint all my front sights to be able to get better target acquisition. And what you want to do, you have to find that point that you can raise that barrel enough, just very slightly, where you see that front sight over the rear trench. And that takes practicing with your gun and finding out whether or not where that point is, where that aim point is. And when you first start working on snub accuracy, I recommend that you use the isosceles stance and position. Now, me personally, I use the old combat crouch. If it's not for you, it's not for you. But for me, it gives me more stability, a stable base, gets me lower to the ground. It gives me lateral mobility, also front and back mobility. But, you know, that's something I do. Now, just because I recommend at first you start off with isosceles doesn't mean that later on you can transition to weaver, one-handed, or, you know, shooting from the ground, shooting from a chair, shooting from different positions and learning how to maneuver your firearm safely. What I recommend, 50% of the time you practice bullseye shooting, and then at home with safe snaps and snap caps, an unloaded gun, that you practice your drawing and maneuvering the gun. If you're lucky enough to have a range where you can actually practice maneuvering, drawing, maneuvering, shooting from different positions with your firearm, and I recommend you always do it under supervision, that's great. That's the icing on the cake. But if you can't, 50% of the time bullseye shooting, and then the other 50% of the time working with your maneuvering the gun and using safe snaps and snap caps. So let's go back to the range. I'm going to shoot one round bullseye, concentrating on breathing, stance, squeeze, trying to hit the center of the target, 10 yards. And then I'll do 3 more shots where I do more of a medium speed, trying to hit the target and trying to negotiate the recoil between shots. So let's see how that looks. So how did I do? Well, the very first shot, I jerked the trigger just enough to keep it off target. Now my second shot, I got center, and then this was my third shot. This is why you want to keep that pull on your trigger, and why you need to practice that pull on the trigger, because you want a consistent, not a slow pull, but a consistent, steady pull on that trigger. Gun's unloaded. See where I'm locking my thumbs. Now once you push that sight on target, consistent, steady and consistent. That's the key. So maybe one of these tips might help you. Maybe you have some other tips that you might want to mention. And this is Greg with Lionquest Fitness.